Guys, Marsingin here bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so as you can see from the title and the thumbnail, it is tier list time. We are going to do the top 10 LRs in Dokkan currently as of the very beginning of the Transcendent Dokkan campaign, with the addition of the Golden Frieza and Gogeta Reversible Exchange Dokkan Fest exclusive. Now, I wanted to mention straight away that this I've got this Golden Frieza up on the screen. Obviously his EZA is not yet live in the game, so I wanted to sort of mention him right at the very beginning. I feel like he could make it onto this list. We'll discuss as we go sort of whereabouts I think he could potentially be placed, because obviously we need to see him in game, test him out a bit and stuff like that. But based on what we know of his EZA, I feel like he could definitely make it into this list over one or two of the other units, maybe, based on certain team builds. Because the units that are kind of at the bottom of this top 10 list are very specific for certain teams and for like certain events. So I feel like Frieza could be counted among them as well. Because we know obviously in longer events he is going to get weaker defensively, which could be bad, whereas some of the other units above him are fine regardless of the length of the events, right? So I thought I'd get that out of the way straight away. Obviously, as always, the usual spiel when I do my tier lists, right? All of this stuff is based on my own personal experience playing the game. So anything that's kind of RNG reliant or anything like that, if you have really good luck with a unit and I have really bad luck with a unit whenever I use them, then obviously I'm probably going to put them lower on my tier list than you might on your own personal list. But at the end of the day, it is just my opinion, and as I say, it is based on my experience playing the game, right? So it's like if I take a unit into a bunch of different events on a bunch of different teams and they always die, then and I put them low on the list, then, you know, people being like, oh, so and so should be higher, they're so good in like this one particular event or something, then obviously to me it's like, well, every time I use them they die. So, you know, it's kind of based on my own personal experience, but I feel like everybody does that to their own, like everyone has their own biases, their own preferences. That's why I like hearing your guys' thoughts on the list. As we always say with these tier lists, I absolutely do not mind whatsoever people disagreeing with any of the placements. Just let me know why you disagree in the comments and how you would change things around. I always appreciate like good comments, like good arguments for stuff, rather than people just saying like, so and so at number 7 is terrible, and it's like that's all they put, right? And it's like, okay, but why? Like, why do you think that the units like just above them are actually not as good? Or like let me know, right? So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. As I say before as well in every one of these videos now, I still do a 1 to 10 kind of format, but I also colour the tiers. So units in the same colour tier I feel like can be shifted around without really much discussion. I'll be perfectly fine with that. However, I've put more tiers in this one than ever before, because I feel like whilst a couple of the units are on a similar level, there's a couple more little gaps between units than there has been in the previous lists, and some of it again is thanks to more playtesting and playing with other units. This isn't just the same as my last tier list, but with Golden Frieza and Gogeta splashed in. I've also moved the placements of some of the other characters as well. So without further ado, we are going to go ahead and jump in. So at number 10, I have Super Saiyan 3 to Super Saiyan 4 Goku. This guy is still really, really good on all the teams you can run him on. Honestly, one of the only things that is a little bit disappointing, and it's not even his fault, right? But one of the best teams to run at the moment in terms of some of the strongest superclass characters is the STR Blue Goku and Vegeta, but because they lead Future and Fused Fighters, this guy isn't on their team. So it's a real shame you can't run him on that setup, because that would be really, really good. And again, that's not his fault. I'm not going to like massively mark him down because of that, but it is a little bit unfortunate. Power Beyond Super Saiyan, obviously though, a very, very good and very strong category. Once we get the Daima stuff finally come out and we get Daima Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Adult Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, this guy obviously is going to have even more value again, so potentially will move up a place or two, because I have him at number 10 and at number 9 in the same color tier. So if you want to switch them to 9 and 10 or 10 on 9, whichever way around, I have the AGL Vegeta. Now, some people in the last tier list thought it was weird that he was even on the list, right? Because in some of the newer events, this guy can get kind of fried, but even in some of the shorter events, right, depending on which rotation he starts on, you obviously have the ability to fuse into Gogeta from turn 5. So if this guy comes into play on the second turn, depending on where the attacks are, you can just float him off then he comes back on turn 5, and then if you're in one of the shorter events, then just transforming him into Gogeta and using the Gogeta active skill, that still has a ton of value in a lot of these difficult events. And he has a better leader skill than like the Goku, for example, because being just a single category 220 and it is only giant 8 power, like I feel like it's not too crazy of an argument for me to say that this guy's leader skill is better. This leader skill also has the new Gogeta on Frieza on it, which is kind of a fun team build, but I like this guy. The other thing that's really useful as well is the fact that obviously on turn 5 you can exchange into from turn 4, sorry, you can exchange into Goku. Turn 4 is the active skill. From turn 4 you can trade into Goku, and then with Goku straight away you can use the Veku active skill, which is a Ghost Usher, and then on the next turn gives this guy guaranteed dodge. So even again, if you feel like this unit is a bit of a defensive liability, if they're on turn 1, you could float them off, and then straight away on turn 4, exchange into Goku, active skill, float him off, and then on turn 7, when he comes back again, he has guaranteed dodge. So they can provide quite a bit of utility to the team with their active skills, regardless of whether it's the Gogeta transformation or the Veku active skill. So I still think this unit is really good, and it's funny to think, like, people might be surprised, but, like, these guys I now have put on the list above Tech Vegito. Tech Vegito would probably be 11, or maybe arguing for 10 with Goku, but they'd be in all three in the same colour tier, because I feel like the Goku part of the Vegito card and the Vegeta part of the Vegito card are both worse than the Goku and Vegeta parts of the Gogeta card. Vegito, the active skill, is obviously still crazy good, like fusing into Vegito and using the active skill, but Vegeta's active with the Potara break I don't think is anywhere near as useful as Goku's active skill. So I think this unit is just considerably better than the Tech Vegito in the meta at the moment. And then I guess I should have put Tech Vegito at 10 as well as the Goku. It's hard to say, like, I didn't want to put in an 11 or like an honourable mention. I probably just could have put them both at 10. But I think in certain team builds, I would rather take this guy. Like, if I'd built certain teams, and like I had a bunch of Power Beyond Super Saiyan characters on there, and obviously they both fit under the leader skill, for certain difficult events, I would rather bring this guy than the Tech Vegito, depending on the event. Some events, obviously, bring Tech Vegito instead. So I feel like that's probably a really controversial one. But I think I would put Tech Vegito at 11. But like all three of these guys would be in the same colour tier. So that might be crazy. I don't know. But I just find myself using Vegito less and less nowadays. Whereas I still put this guy on teams sometimes. Either for the Veku active skill or for the Gogeta active skill. Which obviously mega buffs everybody else, right, including the new Gogeta. Like I did that rotation in a video earlier today where we used the AGL Gogeta active and then the Tech Gogeta active, and that's a crazy turn, right? So I still think this guy has some value in the meta even now, but they are at the very bottom of the list in the like bottom color tier. So Vegeta at 9, this guy at 10. You could switch them around if you want, and I would be fine with that. But then at number 8 we have the Tech Gods. So the Tech Gods are at 8, and then the Super Saiyan 4s are at 7. Should be pretty obvious, like they're both very, very similar. I did put them in 2 different colour tiers. I feel like these guys are definitely better enough than these guys that they deserve their own tier. But then I also think that the 4s are better than the Gods enough that they're not interchangeable for me anymore. Obviously, certain teams, like these guys, you probably want to be running with other Super Saiyan 4s for links like Saiyan Raw at the very least. Whereas obviously these guys can be splashed into some of the other Power Beyond Super Saiyan builds without having to worry about Saiyan Raw, although they do have Warrior Gods, which is also a fairly uncommon attack link. But these guys, obviously in an event that disables dodge, when we're talking about the transformation, because realistically these units are basically both the same before they transform. Once we transform with the Gods, these guys both of course get their 1 turn 77% damage reduction again. But then against really hard-hitting bosses, the Gods are relying on dodge, which they can get a lot extra of by picking up Rainbow Orbs, so it's not necessarily the end of the world. But when events start cancelling dodge, it can become a little bit of an issue. Whereas, of course, Gogeta not only has the Scouter, which is incredibly powerful, like it's such a valuable ability, he also gets extra damage reduction with the Rainbow Orbs, which makes him tankier and can counter super attacks. And he even has, of course, I often forget this is a thing, right? But one time only, if the enemy's at 50% or less HP, he guaranteed counters their super attack as well. So it even takes the RNG factor out of it completely, as long as the enemy is on low enough HP. So I don't think this is a controversial take. Maybe if anyone does disagree, like, do let me know why you think why. But I don't think there's any reason why you would put the gods above, like, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta in a tier list. I mean, I've seen people put Gogeta even higher than this. Like, I saw a tier list during the GDC where Gogeta was at, like, 2. And that was after Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta had come out, and a lot of people thought he was number 1. Like, I saw people putting this guy at, like, 2 or 3. Which, they are really good, but I guess to sound off against that kind of, like, putting them that high, is obviously you've still got to have the turns where you play as these guys. And turn 1, they're obviously super tanky, but then their second turn can be potentially risky, and if you've got them on a team chock full of other really good characters, and they've maybe had to be forced off rotation or something like that, you can end up getting to turn like 4 or 5 as their second turn, and they haven't really had barely any build up, and then they could be in a seriously dangerous spot. And sometimes you feel kind of like forced into a situation where it's like, well, I have to fuse with them early, otherwise they're just going to die now. And this goes for them as well, right, for the gods. You don't want to get into a situation where it's like turn 4 or 5 and you have to transform, because otherwise they're just going to get destroyed by a hard-hitting boss on that turn where they then don't have guard anymore. They have guard, sorry, they don't have the damage reduction. And they've only stacked up to like 500-600k defense if they weren't able to get a ton of supers off on their first appearance or anything. Or, of course, you know, in a situation where events like Rosé and Zamasu, where we have locking straight away from the very beginning, and this unit ends up getting locked in slot 3, so then they come back on like turn 4 and they've only had a couple of attacks go off. Sometimes you end up in a situation where you feel like you have to transform them early, when you'd obviously rather be able to get more stacks. But they're obviously still both exceptional units, right? And that's why we have them at 8 and 7 respectively. So then we have, moving on to number 6, we have the STR Rosé. Now, I put this guy in the same tier colour as the Super Saiyan 4s, because I feel like when it comes to superclass teams, like the Super Saiyan 4s just are so good, and Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is so good. Whereas with Rosé, it's hard for me because, like, I love Rosé. I really like this unit. I have loads of fun using him, more so using him on like Omega's team, because the leader skill, man, I say it before, I'll say it again, Super Bosses is just such a disappointing choice for this guy's leader skill. He would be so much better if he had like Worldwide Chaos 220 or something. Really disappointed with him having Super Bosses. The Super Bosses team, even with the release of like the new Frieza and Gogeta, the Super Bosses team is just very, very wonky. But this guy is super good. He can slot one tank for the majority of difficult events. He obviously has the active skill that can buff him and all of the other Super Bosses characters, which can be really good. Or, of course, you have the Zamasu, which there's a couple of... I think both the Part 1 GDC reversible exchange units are the same, where you kind of just stay as the starting unit for the most part, and then there's the odd occasion where the exchange comes in handy. And like for these guys, it's like if you start the turn on low HP, you can exchange into Zamasu and use his active skill and then basically get a full heal, and then just switch back to Rosé, right? Which is what I usually do. I very rarely ever play like actually with Zamasu, unless I know he's going to finish the rotation, and I just kind of do it for like a bit of fun to like finish off the boss. Otherwise, I don't really end up using the Zamasu part of the card that much. So I put him at number 6. I think you could probably argue that he is just above these guys, but like I said, some people put these guys even higher than this just because of Gogeta. So if we're just rating the actual Gogeta transformation versus Rosé, there are definitely arguments for Gogeta being better. So I think these guys being in the same tier is fine, because Gogeta obviously has the fact that he doesn't start off as Gogeta, he starts off as the Super Saiyan 4s, but Rosé is at number 6. So then at number 5, I have Gohan, Goten, and Trunks. So these guys have moved down a couple of places from the previous tier list, and that is largely because whilst they did get a lot of buffs that made their team very good, their team is still very like hit or miss, which I guess is a funny way of putting it, because their team largely relies on dodge for its defense. They have so many characters on their team on the optimal build, like Physical Goten and Trunks, AGL LR Goten and Trunks, Physical Pan, like these units that need to dodge, otherwise they're just getting crushed by the hardest hitting bosses in the game. Whereas Gohan, Goten and Trunks are really, really good. Someone complained in the previous list that like Gohan after turn 1 is a bit of a fish, which, I mean, he is very tanky on the first turn. It kind of depends whether you get the 5 rainbow orbs early on or not, which I've had quite a few runs using his team where I have actually been able to do that, like quite a few times, and he's obviously significantly better defensively then. But I think the real strength of this unit is kind of the opposite to the 2 Part 1 GDC exchanges, where if you build the team right with the right allies that Goten and Trunks need, right, the Youth and Hybrid Saiyan allies, you just transform into Goten and Trunks straight away and then just stay as them, and then this unit is insane. Like, the attack stats that they put out even at low dupe levels is ridiculous. They get the extra dodge chance against the super and then buff the whole team as well. They raise allies defense, they raise allies attack guaranteed with their super, and potentially raise their defense as well, which is really, really good. So I think these guys are crazy. I think the only thing that's changed my mind a little bit is by using all the different teams now as the GDC has fully come to an end. Like, some of the other teams are just better than their team overall. Even if, like, the output of Goten and Trunks surpasses a character that might be like a spot or 2 above them on this list, the team does play a huge role. And I do find as well that on the youth hybrids kind of team, what I consider to be one of the best team builds, or like the most effective team builds, the team is very much lacking in like really good slot 1 characters. So if you go into a really hard event where it's like tough right from turn 1, and you don't have one of the Goten or like one of the Gohans on turn 1, or you have like both of them on turn 1, then turn 2 is an issue, because then it's like, who do you put in slot 1? A character that's just going to completely rely on dodge, and if they even get touched by a normal, they potentially get killed. So their team is kind of awkward, but the unit itself is still absolutely fantastic. And the one thing I should stress is, even though they're at number 5, and this is like a top 10 list, all of the units on this list are really good, right? Like, the top 10 units in the game, even 11, like we said with like Vegito, 12 potentially could be like Golden Frieza. You know, we've got Vegeta and Trunks. Like, all of these top units are still really, really good. It's just there is obviously there are little gaps between some of them. Some of the gaps are bigger than others. So being at number 5 doesn't in any way mean I don't think that this unit is insane. This is like one of the best units in the game. They're just the 5th best LR according to me at this current time, I guess. Because I did mention Golden Frieza earlier. Like, Golden Frieza I think could easily be put around these guys kind of level, because like I said, like, this guy will work on certain teams in certain events really well because of the active skill. This guy works really well on certain teams and certain events. I think Golden Frieza is probably similar. I don't think with the way Golden Frieza drops off, we'd be putting him on the level of like these guys, I don't think. So that's why I haven't put him on the list officially, but he would probably be around the same tier as these guys here. But Gohan, Goten and Trunks come in at number 5. So then we have at number 4, this is where I decided to put LR, Golden Frieza and Gogeta for now. I've tested them out quite a bit. I've tested their own team. I've used them on other teams. Their team is fun, but it is kind of wonky. I like what they've done with this idea of trying to merge together movie bosses and movie heroes. Gogeta and Frieza both having these restrictions where, as long as you build the team with like 4 extreme units, so you've got like the double Gogeta Frieza leads, 2 other extreme characters, and then 3 superclass characters, they both get their full passives and their full like requirements for the active skill and stuff like that. And that team can work. Like, I think the build that I've been using and trying out in a bunch of the different events is like Golden Frieza and Gogeta, then that AGL Gogeta, right, for the Gogeta active, or the Ghost Usher if we need it. Tech Broly can still be a pretty good slot 1. The Tech Gods, obviously. The new Coat Vegeta for the Rainbow Orb changing. And then an extreme unit after that, I've kind of switched and tried a couple of different ones out. Obviously, that's where AGL Golden Frieza will go when he gets his Easy A. But I think this unit is really good. They have arguments to be higher, I think, based solely on how good Gogeta is. Like, if the card was just Gogeta with this exact passive, like, he would be insane. But Golden Frieza, I mean, you can switch into Gogeta literally on turn 3 if you have the superclass allies. So it's not too hard. And, like, as long as the event's not super crazy on turn 1, Golden Frieza is still going to be fine on turn 1. Golden Frieza is super fun to use on Omega's team. I like the fact that you can, if you really want to, like in tougher events, just use the active skill straight away for this guy, let him get fully built up and drop some big attacks on the first turn, and then thanks to all the Omega support and everything, he can still be relatively good defensively. The only problem is, like, from the design of his kit, he very much seems like a unit that kind of wants to be a slot 1 tank. after he's fully built up. But his start of turn defense isn't crazy, so the hardest hitting bosses are still doing like big damage to him in slot 1, especially if you have him at the lower dupe levels, right? Mine's only 55%. So once you start getting some dupes into him, his hidden potential is definitely an interesting one, because Gogeta doesn't need crit and kind of relies on dodge. But this guy wants to get hit in order to build up during the turn. So if you built this unit for full dodge, you would just be kind of cucking the Frieza part of the card, which is not ideal. So I think this unit is really good and really fun. It's a really interesting idea. I love the actual unit itself, like the Golden Frieza and Gogeta exchange I think is really cool. But I've put them at number 4 because I think the top 3 all just have reasons for being better than this unit. And like I said, like when it comes to transformation units, I said it with the Super Saiyan 4s and Gogeta, like even though Gogeta is super crazy, the card doesn't start as Gogeta. And on certain team builds, right, like if you're running an extreme team, you can't actually even use Gogeta anyway. So, I don't know, this unit's really good. Maybe they'll go higher if we get even more buffs. Obviously, we don't know what part 2 of the celebration will be. So if we get even more movie bosses or movie heroes, easy A's or super easy A's, and then the part 2 LR is like a movie boss character, then obviously that team could become one of the stronger teams in the game, and maybe that would move this guy up a place or 2. But for now, I think they are entering the top 10 here at number 4. So that takes us to the top 3. Now, actually, I did put this guy as well at number 4. I put him in the same tier as Gohan, Goten, and Trunks, so they're the same colour. So they're 4 and 5. If you wanted to switch them, I could understand it. I think because they both have a similar sort of thing, right, where their team itself is kind of specific, it's kind of unique, it has its own specific way that it wants to work. It's not as versatile as some of the other teams, so they are similar in that sense. And then like even the fact that the Gohan is the first part of the card and is the kind of tanky part that isn't necessarily tanky enough against really hard bosses, very similarly to Frieza. And then Goten and Trunks, you switch to them and they are the rely on dodge super big damage dealer part of the card, just like Gogeta. So they are very similar. So I've got them at 4 and 5 in the same colour. So if you want to switch them, you could. So then at number 3, we have Omega. So I moved Omega up a bit and actually moved him above Gohan, Goten, and Trunks from the previous tier list, because Omega's team is just absolutely insane. Like, I love Omega. I think he's really, really good. He himself, like as a slot 1 tank, will get killed by harder hitting bosses and stuff, but just the sheer amount of defense and support that he provides to the team, his leader skill is ridiculously good. He's got a pretty decent link set, obviously having big bad bosses, like the Frieza, Golden Frieza works really well on his team, STR Rosé works really well on his team. If we just keep getting any more villains that come out, because obviously GT bosses is part of his leader skill, but any other villains that come out that are on Inhuman Deeds or Power Absorption will end up working super well on his team. And if we get something like a Baby that's on Battle of Fate, or we get any other Boo characters that are on Power Absorption and obviously Worldwide Chaos, they're going to get his full leader skill and just be very, very effective on his team. So Omega is just super good. Having the AoE that also action breaks like all the enemies is quite useful as well. Like, this guy's just really good, and I think his team, honestly, like when it comes to clearing the new events and how quickly you can clear through the stage, like in terms of time, I feel like his team might be one of the best teams in the game, if not the best team in the game. Which is kind of crazy, right, for Extreme to be in that kind of position. So I really, really like Omega. I put him at number 3, but I put him in the same colour tier as number 2, which is Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is still insane. Like, people complaining that he fell off immediately because they added in that one new, like, the Hybrids Blue Zone where the characters were hitting for like 12 million supers in slot 1. Obviously, this guy has his strengths and weaknesses, but I don't think we can overlook in the right scenarios just how ridiculous this guy is. Like, mine's 55% and he still drops insane numbers, multiple supers every turn. The active skill turn with the Dragon Fist goes super hard in terms of both damage and defense. Like, this guy's just crazy. I don't think he's number 1. Like, he's obviously got a leader skill that is GT Heroes, which, you know, GT Heroes is a good team, but it's obviously quite a limited leader skill. He does fit on a lot of other teams, and a lot of those other teams you can run other Super Saiyan 4s, like the LR Year 7s, so he has a perfect partner in most of those teams as it is anyway. I mean, he gets a ton of defense when receiving an attack or receiving a super specifically. The only annoying thing about him is that he only can nullify Ki Blast supers, and a lot of the tough stages that we've gotten recently don't have Ki Blast super attacks. So that is a little bit annoying when you compare him with like the physical Gogeta or even the Int Gogeta, where they can counter any kind of super. Obviously, that would make this guy even more busted if he had the chance to counter all kinds of super attacks, but he still is incredibly good. But I put them in the same color tier because I feel like you honestly could make arguments that Omega is as good as Gogeta in certain situations, especially because of the leader skill and the support, right? And then no surprise, I still think number one is STR Blue Goku and Vegeta. A lot of people have complained when you put this guy at number one, people are like, oh, but he's dodge or die. Like, in some situations, maybe, but like when we were going through that long festival run for the mission, like one of the things I think people overlook is that when he receives an attack, he gets 180% defense, whilst also having 70% damage reduction. Is it 70% damage reduction? Where is it? 10% for that. Yeah, it's 70% damage reduction and 80% dodge, because this is 60% damage reduction and dodge with the right allies on the team, and then an extra 20% dodge and 10% damage reduction. So what you've got to remember is if this guy gets up to even say like, I don't know, let's do a low ball, because like I was talking about a run where we were using like Vegeta and Trunks for the permanent stacks, but let's say this guy with some support or whatever has 500k defense start of turn, right? So when he receives an attack, he gets 180% extra, so that puts him up to 1.4 million, but then he also has 70% damage reduction. So if we take like a 6 million super, take off 70%, that makes 1.8. So he tanks that super even if he doesn't dodge, a 6 million damage super in slot 1 before he attacks. And if he attacks, he also raises his defense. So yeah, I don't know why people think he is dodge or die. Against obviously the hardest hitting super attacks in the game, then yes, he would be, but he also has an 80% chance to dodge. So this unit is super good. Obviously, when you use his active skill as well, not only do you get the extra 20% defense, like permanently, but you can now dodge bosses that disable dodge. So that helps out massively in some of these other events as well. So this guy is crazy. His leader skill is really good. Future Saga or Fused Fighters incorporates most of the strongest units in the game. In fact, if we think about the units on this tier list, like the top 10 LRs in the game, his leader skill includes Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, it includes Frieza and Gogeta, it includes Rosé, it includes Gohan, Goten and Trunks because they have fused fighters, it includes the Year 7s, it includes both of them because they both fuse with the active skill, it includes the Year 10 Vegeta. So the only units not on this top 10 list, or on this top 10 list that are not in their leader skill, is Super Saiyan 3 to Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Omega. Like, that's how good this leader skill is, right? It might not be the full 220, but they're on that leader skill. And then, of course, you do have the option, like Vegeta, you can switch to Vegeta, use his active skill in slot 3 to do some massive damage with a guaranteed crit. Then he keeps that buff even if you move him back into slot 2. He also then buffs all the Future Saga allies with extra for Bond of Parent and Child for 4 turns. So depending on how you've built the team, that gives the buff to a lot of the other characters as well. And can also buff, like his passive, he can also buff the LR Vegeta and Trunks. So they work super well together. He is, like I said, with Rosé when it comes to the part 1 reverse exchanges. I do usually just stay as Goku for the most part. He is also infinitely stacking attack, which is really good. The fact that he gives 60% defense as well. People don't talk enough about that, I think, when people try and downplay this guy. Because not only does he have all that dodge and damage reduction and everything in slot 1, but then he supers and he gives everybody else 60% extra defense, which is on top of what they already have, right? It's like multiplicative as far as I'm aware. So if a character, like if we've been stacking with our gods or something, and they're at like 1.4 million defense start of turn, then this guy does his super attack and then they immediately jump up to 2.2 million before they even get their attacks off. So like the defense that he gives everybody else on the rotation is absolutely crazy as well. So yeah, this unit is so good. He's the number one, I think. But obviously I do want to hear what you guys think down below in the comments section. But if we look at the list, like here in reverse order, so 10 we have Goku, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and 9 we have the Vegeta / Gogeta in the same color, so you could switch them if you wanted to. 8 is the gods in their own color because I think they are better than the 9 and 10, but they're just not enough. They're not good enough to be in the same color tier as the Year 7 Super Saiyan 4s, so they're at number 7. Rosé's at number 6, and you can make arguments for them swapping mainly just because of the Gogeta part of the card. But I think Rosé just should be at 6 above them. Gohan, Goten and Trunks at 5, and the new Frieza and Gogeta are at 4, and they're in the same colour tier there as well. Omega at 3, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta at 2, and they're in the same colour tier, and then Blue, Goku and Vegeta at number 1. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. As I say, if you disagree with the list at all, do let me know why. Let me know how you would change the list and where you think these guys should be. Or if you want, of course, just give me a rundown of your personal top 10 in the comment section as well. And I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.